What is the most painful thing in a person's life? It is not being so poor that you have to eat other people's leftovers, but being completely unloved. I have lived in a loveless family since I was a child. My mother left, my father stayed away, and my grandmother despised me. The only one who felt sorry for me was my sister, who was a few years younger than me. I swear to love her well in this life. When I was 12 years old, my parents divorced. I wanted to keep him, but I didn't know what to say. In the end, I just said, "Mom, are you really going to leave?" My mother avoided my eyes and said, "I have been here for 15 years and never felt that this is my home." She said a lot, but I only remember this sentence. He never felt that this is his home. What about my home? Where is my home? I also have a 6-year-old sister, Chinyu. My mother didn't want anyone else and took 30,000 yuan from my dad and left. My grandmother and aunt were very excited. My grandmother was leaning on a cane and said to me very happily, "We are finally divorced. Sister, your father will find you a new one tomorrow." My aunt said even more excitedly, "Chin Ran, I tell you, he didn't want you and you can't support him in the future." My sister hid behind me, hugging my legs tightly, and when we went to bed at night, he carefully reached out and pulled my hand and said, "Mom, are you never coming back?" I didn't know how to answer him, so I didn't say anything and just stared at the ceiling with my eyes open. He squeezed towards me, got closer to me and said, "Sister, will you not want me too?" I felt that today was like a dream, but his words made me feel a little sad. I couldn't help but let the tears roll down. I resisted the urge to cry, took a deep breath and then comforted him saying, "I won't want you." I thought that without turning on the lights he wouldn't notice anything wrong with me. As a result, he tremblingly reached out his hand to my eyes, and then carefully wiped away my tears. He didn't say anything and I didn't say anything either. He quietly rolled into my arms, and I reached out and hugged him. I went to the middle school in the town that afternoon. I lived in the school dormitory and came back once a week. My sister was in the first grade in the elementary school next to our home. My father and my mother's divorce was only a matter of time. They each had their own big family and no such thing as a small family. Every Chinese New Year they would start quarreling or even fighting. My mother complained that there were not enough things for my grandmother's family, and my father felt that he had to take care of my aunts. They would start fighting while quarreling. Sometimes when they got angry, my mother would throw the kettle at my father, and my father would beat my mother directly. They would fight from the yard of their home to the road outside, and then many people from the village would surround them. They would not stop until they were tired of beating. Then whenever I went out, the villagers liked to discuss with me. "Chin Ran, your father beat your mother so hard. Would he beat you like this too? I heard that your mother hit your father with a kettle. Is that true? I heard that your mother's mouth was rotten because of the beatings from your father. Chin Ran, why didn't you stop them? Don't you feel sorry for your mother? Your mother really raised you in vain. Why didn't I stop them?" I remember when I was very young, I once stood between them and cried and begged. They stopped beating me and then I got slapped hard by my mother. It was so painful from my face to my ears that even in the next few days when I was eating, that part of my face was pulled and hurt. My father also kicked me in the waist, right on the bone between my stomach and leg. It was bruised there for more than a month after I lifted my clothes. It hurt when I passed clothes there, and even when I spoke loudly I felt the pain there. My parents accidentally saw my father and asked him to do it. "You are so capable, but you dare to meddle in my business." I was young at that time and couldn't help crying. They said you only knew how to cry and wail for me, and they didn't know they raised you to be a claw. So I usually didn't pay much attention to the people in the village. I knew they didn't care about me, they just needed something to talk about. But the more I ignored them, the more excited they became, as if they had found an excuse. They started to say that I was weird and didn't say hello to people when they saw them. Sometimes I would talk about this in front of my father, and my father would slap me directly and say, "What are you doing now with you? Is that mother just as arrogant? You see, she looks down on everyone." My mother would then howl beside me saying, "What's it to me? You blame me for everything every day," and then poke my head saying, "You still don't know you're a devil causing trouble every day." My sister would rather not eat immediately and glare at them. My mother was so angry that she smashed her chopsticks on his head and said, "Did I give birth to you or your sister? I gave birth to you, you dog. I am your mother. Who are you to be fierce with?" Every time after my mother and my father had a fight, she would hug my sister and say to me, "If it weren't for you two sisters, I would have divorced you long ago." He said this, Chinyu didn't understand, but I did. I didn't know how to respond to him, so I could only lower my head and stand there stiffly. But the more I did this, the angrier he got. As he spoke, he began to pull my ears, pulling them hard, as if he was going to pull my ears off or slapping me. They seem to like slapping very much, just my face seems to be born to be slapped. It seems that they always find excuses for me. My ears always hurt when they slap me. Sometimes it's because my ears are blinded by the slap, especially when they are the most angry. The reflection comes down and my ears make a rumbling sound. It takes a long time for the bulging rumbling feeling to disappear. As soon as my mother left, my father went out to work. My sister's living expenses are paid once a semester. After all, he only has one lunch at school, but mine is paid intermittently, sometimes for a long time. I call my father to ask him for money to recharge his meal card. When he is in a good mood, he will ask someone to bring money to me. When he is in a bad mood, he will directly curse on the phone saying, "Do you think I am picking up money? Do you think my money fell from the sky?" I don't know why, but I really want to eat at that time and I am always very hungry. Then I did the thing that I can never let go of in my life. There was a girl in my dormitory whose family was not well off. I found out that she washed dishes for other roommates and ate their leftovers. I thought I really don't know what I was thinking at the time. I also started to wash dishes for my roommates and eat their leftovers. At that time, everyone often shared a bowl of instant noodles, especially the instant noodle soup, and everyone often scrambled to drink it. I subconsciously treated leftovers as instant noodles, and did not feel ashamed of it, but proud of it. I remember one winter when it was particularly cold, and a roommate deliberately left the last bite, handed the bowl to me and said, "I saved it for you, did you wash the bowl?" Later, a girl joked to Chin Ran, "You two are so stupid. Why are you washing bowls with them? Look, there are so many in the bucket. Eat as much as you want." The bucket he mentioned was the school's leftover rice bucket. Our school was in a remote town, and the cafeteria only cooked meals for everyone. The students who lived on campus usually took the meals back to the dormitory to eat, and they could also take a nap. Therefore, there were 2 to 3 leftover rice buckets on each floor of the dormitory. My face was burning red, and then I realized what I was doing. For many nights afterwards, whenever I thought of the incident in junior high school, a huge sense of shame would overwhelm me. It was like having no dignity at all. How could a person live without any shame? I had no money, so I started to eat only 1 meal a day. I was so hungry every day that I felt dizzy. The vegetarian dishes in school cost more than 3 yuan a meal, and the meat dishes cost more than 5 yuan a meal. Every time my dad called me, he would emphasize, "Are you going back home on Friday? Do you usually eat vegetarian food at school? Do you eat meat when you go home?" At that time, in order to please him, every time I called him, I would proudly tell him that I only spent less than 20 yuan this week. Then he would praise me, saying that you should be more sensible. It is not easy for dad to make money. Your mom doesn't want you anymore. Think more about dad, okay? I was often so hungry that I felt dizzy. Sometimes, in order to save money, I would spend 50 cents to buy potato chips in school. At that time, they were in transparent bags. A small bag cost 50 cents. Then a girl in the village saw it and spread it back to the village saying that I ate snacks every day. But at that time, I only had that 50-cent bag of potato chips a day. I ate potato chips. When I was hungry, I would not eat a single meal that day, or I would only eat 1 meal because I was so hungry that I could not stand it. Then when my grandmother found out, she would scold me saying, "What kind of person am I? The old man works so hard to earn money, and you still want to eat snacks. You are exactly the same as your mother." I didn't tell anyone about eating at that time. My shoes broke many times and I always bought 502 glue to glue them, but that stuff was completely useless. It would crack after a short while. Sometimes I accidentally got them on my hands and my hands would feel like they were scalded at first, and then the skin would quickly stick to it, and it would take a long time to wash it off. My sister's canteen at that time often gave them steamed buns and porridge for lunch for the sake of convenience. She often brought the steamed buns that she had secretly left for me at noon, and gave me one of the buns in her arms. When she brought it to me, it was still hot. I don't know how to describe that feeling. Before she was born, I was lonely and could not feel any love, but every time he ran towards me, I could feel it firmly. I am important to him. I got the care and love from a child. So even though I am stingy, I will save my living expenses to buy him ice cream. When I buy spicy strips, he will swallow his saliva and ask me not to buy them, saying that it is a waste of money, and then he will give me the first bite. "Sister, when I grow up, I will open the biggest store for you and you can eat as much as you want. Sister, I will make a lot of money in the future and give you a lot of money. You can buy whatever clothes you want and whatever shoes you want. I will also buy you a car and we will buy a big house bigger than any of theirs, for just the 2 of us to live in." All his wishes when he was a child were about me. Sometimes my shoes were badly damaged, and I would ask my grandmother to take them to the shoemaker to repair them. She would usually say impatiently, "I don't know why you waste your shoes so much. Look at other people's shoes that Cindy has not been damaged." Cindy is my eldest aunt's daughter. Of course she doesn't need to repair her shoes. My eldest aunt often buys shoes for her. How could it have the chance of being worn out? But fortunately, she would still mend it for me in the end, and after mending it, she would ask me in many ways to take good care of it. And it was not easy for you, an old man, to make money. Ha, you and Chin, you have a good life, unlike our time where there was no such good thing. The shoes you wore were made of straw. You and Chin, you have so many clothes, pants and shoes, do you want to love them? I know her life was not good before, she didn't have enough to eat, and several children starved to death. But I can feel her mentality more. I have suffered so much before, why don't you 2 women eat? She is getting older and more confused. Sometimes when she is sober, she will say a few words, Seeing that you two are so young and have no mother, it is still a sin. Later, my mother came to see me one day when I was in the 2nd grade of junior high school. She bought me a pair of shoes for the first time, and then left in a hurry. I heard from others that she was married. I didn't want to borrow that pair of shoes at that time, but I really needed a pair of shoes and I really wanted to respect Yen. She threw the shoes in my hand and left. I thought about countless scenarios whether I should throw the shoes away to show my disdain, but I really have no shoes to wear. I usually wear shoes at school. No matter how cold it is at home, I only wear a pair of sandals so that the shoes are more durable. I couldn't help it and wore that pair of shoes. I despised myself very much. I knew there was a boy in the village whose mother died after giving birth to him. Later, when he was in his teens, his mother came to see him and gave him 800 yuan. He threw the money on his mother and said with great backbone that even if I was poor and starved to death, I would not spend a penny of your money. When I knew about it, I thought I would want it too in the future and I should have backbone too. But my mother didn't give me 800 yuan, not even 80. I didn't even throw a pair of shoes at her. I was really disgusted. The shoes were size 36, and my feet were size 38. My feet kept squeezing into the toe of the shoe, leaving only 2 fingers at the end of the shoe. I finally squeezed my feet in, but it was very difficult. I pulled my hands out with all my strength and put my shoes on, but suddenly I found that I didn't know when my face was covered with tears. What was there to cry about? It was so pretentious. The shoes were put on, but every step I took was so painful. I could only walk with the toes of my shoes first, and when the pain in the front of my feet became unbearable, I walked with my heels. My home is about 6 or 7 kilometers away from the school. In the past, I didn't feel tired when I walked barefoot in slippers, but wearing this pair of shoes, I just felt that the distance was so long and I could never finish it. It was so painful, so I took a deep breath, ran for a while and then quickly stopped and sat down. It was the hottest time of the summer, around 5 or 6 in the afternoon, and the road was paved with gravel, which was scorching hot from the sun. I sat on the ground and felt that the stones were burning my butt, so I put my hands under my butt, and my hands felt hot again. When I finally walked home, the shoes seemed to be stuck to my feet, and it was very difficult to take them off. Finally, I sat on a bench and asked my sister to take them off for me. After finally taking them off, I fell to the ground. 我们的私家臂，在个小姨子的是里人深修和丝的像我们的私家臂。English. When I went to the hospital, my grandmother saw it. She first scolded me for being shameless and for wanting these shoes. Then she said that I deserved it and that this was retribution. The shoes were taken off, but my feet were full of blisters. Some of the blisters were worn out while I was walking. I just felt a burning pain in the soles of my feet. Chinyu used the big sharp thorns of the red tangerine tree to prick my blisters. She said, "Sister, I cannot buy shoes, but can you please not wear these?" She lowered her head when she spoke, but drops of hot tears hit the back of my feet, which seemed to hurt more than the blisters. I really didn't think much of it, but when I saw her crying, I almost couldn't help it. I could only keep repeating in my heart that it was nothing, just a small thing, and that I shouldn't be so pretentious. My eldest aunt's house was not far from us, and she came to see me. I remember his feet were size 36. Children's feet grow fast. Last year he was size 34. I took the pair of shoes my mother bought for me, and exchanged them for a few pairs of his old shoes for my sister. When my eldest aunt found out, her face turned grim. Great. Then she said to me loudly, "Your father earns well, ask him to buy new shoes for your sister. You are so spineless. Your mother treated you like that, and you still accepted her shoes. If it were me, I would never even look at a mother like that." Her voice was so loud that it could be heard by several families around. I felt like I was stripped naked in public by her loud voice. When I took the shoes home, they all looked at me. There were no entertainment activities in the village, so my sister and I were the best topics of conversation. There was a particularly annoying old lady who pretended to be busy. She poked her head out of the yard and said, "Chin Ran, did I hear that your mother bought you new shoes? You see, your mother still misses you a lot." When she said this, her whole facial features were flying. Under her sunken eye sockets, her turbid eyes were full of excitement. 1 or 2 other aunts followed up her words and said, "Oh Chin Ran, let us see the new shoes your mother bought you." Holding a few pairs of old shoes that she liked in her hands, she bent her waist. He stood straight and strode back home. They continued to say to Chin Ran from behind, "Look at your face. You fall down when I say a few words to you. No wonder your mother doesn't want you, your father wants to beat you, and your grandmother scolds you every day. We are doing this for your own good. Who taught you these things? You don't have a mother. If you don't learn something, you will get married in 2 days. I don't know how many beatings you will get." Chinyu heard it and rushed out with a big kitchen knife in both hands, crying and cursing. "Fuck you, it's none of your business. I'm going to chop you up. Damn you bastards." I threw my shoes under the eaves, grabbed her and said, "Who taught you to say these dirty words? How did you learn them?" She bit her cheeks tightly and opened her eyes wide, trying to hold back her tears, but the tears were disobedient and rolled down from her red eyes. I wiped my hands on my clothes, then wiped away her tears and said, It's okay, don't pay attention to them, they are not important, we will go out later, sister will take you out. My father is my grandmother's late son. My grandmother was over 80 when I was in junior high school. She was 48 years old when my father was born, and she had no special skills. She had to borrow money from the east and the west to raise my father. My father started carrying stones when he was 12 years old to support him. Whenever she talked about this, she would say that my father was so sensible and capable, but my father would immediately turn his head away or find other words to interrupt. He was often teased in the village, and others called him a daoguan. Later, after my mother got married, they said that our family had 3 daoguan. Maybe it was because we were too poor before, so he saved every penny. He thought it was good to have 3 meals a day. We often had no vegetables to eat. I often took bean paste and drizzled some hot cooking oil, and then cut some wild pepper heads and mixed them in. There were often a lot of them growing in the cracks of the rocks on the back mountain, and they were often pulled out by Chinyu and me as soon as they grew out. I used this to mix it with rice and he always ate a lot, and then flattered me and said, "Sister, you are so awesome. Everything you cook is so delicious." There are also many graves on one side of the back mountain, plus large areas of the bamboo forest is so dark and humid that no sunlight can be seen, which is suitable for the growth of fungi. My sister and I often go there in the summer to look for mushrooms to eat. We fry 2 eggs and cook soup. The wild mountain mushrooms are very fresh and delicious when eaten with rice. I am also worried that Chinyu is not getting enough nutrition. This is also very nutritious. At least when there are mushrooms, my grandmother is willing to fry eggs, but she eats them all summer. No matter how delicious the food is, it will make people vomit. After finally having a meal of meat, he will guard the side of the pot, pick the good ones with chopsticks into the bowl, and send it to the ant in the same village. Chinyu keeps swallowing her saliva beside her, and he will curse until he is hungry. Old ghost reincarnated, is it your turn? In the village, there are other old ladies who also like to go there to pick mushrooms. In order to grab mushrooms, my sister and I often run to the cemetery at dawn. Sometimes there is no light at all, and my grandmother starts to urge us to hurry up. Lazy guy, if you go too late you can't even grab shit. Chinyu is so hot that he can't even open his eyes when he sleeps. In addition, he is indeed a little timid, and he is always scared and trembling. I told him to continue sleeping and I would go alone. He immediately got up and pulled me and asked, "What if a ghost took you away?" I joked with him and said, "Then come with me. Aren't you afraid that the ghost will take you away with me?" He didn't say anything and followed me closely with a flashlight. Later, seeing that he was really scared, I touched his head and said, "We are so poor that ghosts will not look down on us. Our ghosts like to eat food with meat." He was so scared that tears came out and he looked up at my sister and said, "I have more meat than you. I will follow you. If there really is a ghost, I will stop it. Will you run first?" One morning he looked around and asked my sister, "Can you promise me one thing?" "What, sister?" "Can I secretly call you mother?" I asked her why. She didn't speak for a long time until we found a big mushroom not far from a grave. She accompanied me to dig mushrooms and then lowered her head and muttered, "I haven't called you mother for too long. I hear Cindy calling mother every day, and want to try what it feels like to call mother." I was stunned for a moment and she looked. I didn't say anything and smiled and said, "I was just joking with you. Haha, I think it would be great if you could stay at home all the time. A child without a mother looks like a stray dog. My grandma just feeds him, and she doesn't care about bathing or washing his hair. Even the cooking is done by Chinyu. Chinyu will use the rice cooker to cook rice, and after cooking, she will mix it with the bean paste that I have poured hot oil on before. As for my grandma, when I am not around, she will go to my aunt's house to eat. I was worried about Chinyu at first, and delayed going to boarding school for a long time. However, because of the evening self-study, there are many teachers who will give lectures, and I am afraid that I can't keep up. Chinyu is always dirty under my grandma's hands, and I feel very sad. Every 1 or 2 days I will bring her to my dormitory at noon, give her a bath and wash her hair, and I have to take advantage of my roommate to eat, and quickly finish it for him. I come back on weekends to wash his clothes as well as my grandma's. He will also be very sensible to help me and do things for me. He is always very happy. I asked him if he is happy to work. He said that he was happy to do anything with his sister. My grandmother finally couldn't hold on any longer when I was in the 3rd year of junior high school. She was lying in bed and it was difficult for her to even get out of bed. My eldest aunt, who had never gone out to work, went out to find a job and even sent her daughter to live with relatives. Chinyu was scared to death. He asked me what to do if my grandmother died. Then, as if he had thought of something, he hurriedly grabbed my hand and said, "Sister, you must get into a good high school. I'm not afraid of just a dead person. There are so many dead people buried behind our house. Aren't we still going to dig wild mushrooms?" I pressed her in my arms and said, "You still have a sister, don't you know?" I quickly discussed with the head teacher and went to day school for a while. Then the head teacher cried and told the whole class about this. He said, "Look, Chinran has a hard time and he is still so motivated. You guys don't know how to cherish your blessings and study hard." He said that when I have children in the future, I hope to have one as sensible as you. I looked at the messy eyes around me, smiled awkwardly, then opened my eyes wide and stared at her. Looking at the exercises in the textbook, tears dripped onto the book unconsciously. I was afraid of being seen by them again, so I bit my tongue hard and forced myself to read word by word. When my grandma was dying, she was the most gentle in her life, and she would not yell at me and Chinyu. The day I went back, she was lying on the bed shouting, Chinyu, Chinyu, where have you been? It hurts me to death over and over again. Chinyu hurriedly trotted in, brought her a bowl of hot water, poured the water in the kettle into the bucket, wet it with a towel, and prepared to give her a hot compress. The water was very hot, and Chinyu carefully grabbed a corner. I snatched the towel from her hand and quickly wrung out the water. Sister, the water is very hot. Chinyu looked at me worriedly. It's okay, sister, don't be afraid. I couldn't get used to this temperature at first, but over the years, every time my grandma had an attack, I was almost used to it. She had a serious rheumatism. Every time she had an attack, applying a hot towel there could relieve it. I just applied it to her, and her eyes were a little gray, and tears rolled down her eyes. She squeezed my hand tightly and said, Chinran, what can we do? Are you going to call your old man? He has told me this countless times since he fell ill. I had to keep comforting him, saying, my father can't leave for the time being, I'll take care of him. He continued, then why don't you call your aunt? She promised me that she would come to take care of me if I was not well. I turned on the hands-free of the landline, and the voice on the other end changed from perfunctory at the beginning to impatient. Chinran, is your old man dead? You are greedy for us. My grandmother heard it this time and shouted, water from the eaves drop by drop, if you treat me like this, your baby will still follow suit. After that, she lay on the bed with her eyes wide open. The wrinkles on her face like gullies were filled with tears. She sighed deeply and said, Chinran, I have a hard life, a hard life. When she went to bed at night, he hurried to please Chinran. I'm a little scared. Can you sleep with me? Chinyu jumped out immediately and said, Grandma, shall I accompany you? I didn't say yes before, why are you so kind now? He seemed to be dissatisfied with Chinyu. It's up to you anyway, if I'm not with you, then no one will be with you. Chinyu also got angry when I was washing dishes at night. I asked Chinyu the reason. Chinyu said to me in a mysterious way, sister, what if grandma really died and attracted unclean things, what would you do? I didn't know what to say. I kept washing the pot with my head down. Chinyu hugged me from behind, my back was wet with her tears. I only heard her say sullenly, sister, you are very important to me, more important than any of them. Finally I convinced Chinyu. The two of us accompanied grandma together. It was really an embarrassing thing, as if we were counting the time and waiting for someone to die. She held my hand and said, okay, there are you two sisters, if I die I will scare you. I will bless you. Chinran, don't blame me, I'm sorry for you. Are you kind? You will have a good life. As he said, he pressed my hand under his pillow. I touched it subconsciously. My first instinct was that there was money in the pillow. I looked at him and he looked at me. His tears kept falling. Then he said to me very solemnly, Chinran, don't blame your father. It's been difficult for him too. You have to study hard. Only by studying can you have a promising future. Don't live your whole life like me. I should hate him. But when he said this, my tears just flowed out. He was very happy to see it. He cried and laughed and said, I thought I was dead and no one would cry for me. The old people used to tell us that if no one cries for you, you will be bullied. Chinran, I'm dead. Can you cry for me? Chinran, I'm your grandmother. I wiped my tears and agreed to her. Then I saw her looking up at the ceiling, shouting hoarsely again and again. Oh God, take me away? I really can't live. It hurts so much if I move. I can't do it anymore. I really can't do it anymore. I can't bear it anymore. Do something good? Take me away. After he finished speaking, his eyes were open and he exhaled his last breath from his mouth. Then he was gone. He was angry. I held my hands, I wiped his eyes with a shiver and asked him to close them. Then I quickly moved the pillow out. There was a stack of money in a small cloth bag inside. I picked up a few pieces, folded them and put them in his pocket, and then hid the rest in the cracks of the bricks on the inside of the bed. I needed the money. After doing all this, I rushed out quickly, stopped Chinyu and quickly closed the door. He was still young and might scare him. Then I shouted loudly, someone come quickly, my grandma is dead. Chinyu grabbed me tightly, her whole body was shaking. I held her in my arms, patted her on the back and comforted her, saying don't be afraid. She said she wouldn't scare us, my sister is here. My dad rushed back overnight, said hello to me, and then devoted himself to the funeral. They found the few $100s when they were dressing grandma in shrouds, so no one suspected me. I saw a tear roll out of my dad's eyes, which he quickly wiped away with his hand. I was wondering if he loved my grandma, and I was wondering if I would feel bad if my mom died. I was worried after my grandma died. Samabana, Chinyu changed from living on campus to being a day student. Chinyu often woke up in the middle of the night and said, Sister, why don't you go to boarding school? I'm not afraid anymore. He was really often unable to sleep because of this worry. At that time, he was the person in the world who was most afraid that I would not pass the exam. He even knelt there and chanted, please be nice to my sister, please bless my sister. I will burn paper money for you every year. When he burned paper money for my grandmother, maybe his prayers worked. I performed exceptionally well, and was admitted to the best middle school in the county. However, if I went to high school I could only come back once a month. So Chin Yu was sent to my aunt's house. Once when I went back I heard them scolding him, saying that he was lazy, that he was the same as my mother, and would definitely be a fool in the future, and that I would go to high school in the county and would definitely mess around like my mother. When it came to me, Chin Yu was like an angry little leopard. He immediately wrestled with my aunt and bit my aunt's hand. My dad came back because of this incident, and he would beat Chin. I was so angry that I couldn't help but slap him. I provoked them. His words made me cry uncontrollably. Poverty is like a huge net. The three of us were trapped in it. Chin Yu was tense and stood stubbornly in front of me, confronting my father. I really had no choice but to kneel down and tell my father that every time I came back, he was scolded. I heard them scolding him yesterday. Why should I live like this? I really can't stand it anymore. Why were we born to be punching bags? In the past, Grandma was always taken care of by the two of us, but she was much better to Cindy than to us. Cindy gave her a red envelope of 200,200 on her birthday, fed me rotten food on my birthday, and pretended not to know about my sister's birthday. I couldn't control my emotions at all. For a moment, I felt like I was about to be swallowed up by my emotions. My heart was particularly uncomfortable. My father had lowered his head and stopped talking, but I kept saying, just because we were born by you should we be punching bags? Why don't you consider us every time you rush for face? Why do you, in order to give birth to us, I don't have to go to school? I can go out to work. Can you go home and do some housework to take care of him? In the end, I gritted my teeth and made this decision. My father slapped me hard and said, I have supported you to study for so long, and you don't want to study anymore. When Chin Yu heard that I didn't want to study anymore, she also cried and asked me to go over and apologize to them. I blocked him behind me to show my attitude. In the end, my father compromised. He found another relative to give living expenses and sent Chin Yu over. My grandmother had 5,000 yuan in her purse at the time. Excluding the 500 yuan used as a cover, I still had 4,500 yuan to use. Because I was studying in the county, I had a lot more room for maneuver and could rest for half a day every week. I often went to the wholesale market to wholesale socks and stockings. The socks cost 50 cents to more than 1 yuan a pair, and I brought back 3 pairs for 10 yuan to sell. The stockings ranged from 2 or 3 yuan to 6 or 7 yuan, and I brought back 10 or 15 yuan to sell. I swept the dormitory building layer by layer. I knocked on dormitory doors one after another to recommend products. Often in one afternoon, I could earn half a month's living expenses, and I saved the rest of the money for myself. I was very afraid that my father would suddenly stop me from studying. I didn't know how long his sense of responsibility would last. In addition to selling socks and other things, I also sold according to the solar terms. For example, I would take leave on Valentine's Day to go out and wholesale roses, sell apples on Christmas, and sell some scarf covers in winter. I also cooperated with restaurants outside the school and delivered school takeouts to them. My grades were good and I looked honest, so the teachers naturally trusted me. They would not think that a girl who studied so hard would deliberately skip classes. I was very tired every day. I tried all the ways I could think of to make money. In fact, I earned much more money than my living expenses, but I didn't dare to spend it. I only spent money on 1 or 2 things: my own tutoring fees and Chin Yu's affairs. Every month when I went home, I would buy Chin Yu some gifts. I even learned how to take care of a child. Every time my roommates talked about when they were at home, I would listen carefully. I thought Chin Yu should have these too, but as I got older, I don't know why, problems arose between Chin Yu and me. The reason was that I went to Chin Yu's school to see him. He was in class, and the teacher was speaking fiercely at the podium. Chin Yu was sitting in the 3rd row from the back. He piled up his books high and kept playing with his nails with his head down. The classmate next to him was playing with his mobile phone with his head down. He kept playing with his fingernails and seemed at a loss as to what to do with Chin Yu. I leaned on the window and saw him. He seemed to sense something and turned his head to look me in the eye. After only a moment, he turned his head away again and didn't come out to see me until the get out of class was over. I asked him why he did that, and he was like a cat with its fur standing on end. I said, I just can't learn well and I've embarrassed you. I tried to comfort him, but his reaction became even more intense. I said, I'm not your child, why do you care so much? I wondered if he had reached puberty and was rebellious, but I really didn't know how to deal with it because I had never experienced it before, and no one stood there to give me a chance. In order to allow me to rebel, I even had to make plans for studying in advance. In the end, Chin Yu and I parted ways unhappily. When he sent me out of school, he said to me without thinking, don't spend your time on me. I was so angry that my head was buzzing, but I still tried to suppress it and said to him, Chin Yu, you are now a rebellious teenager, I can forgive you temporarily. In high school, I studied like my life depended on it. I was not talented. I tried my best to do 10 points and it was good to get 5 points. I especially hoped that these 5 points could take me out. I finally got into an ordinary university, and I was very satisfied with it. I was really not good at studying. Every time I would force a question and practice it over and over again until I knew it. I was the only one in our village who was admitted to university in all these years. When I got the admission letter, I subconsciously wanted to know what would happen if my mother knew. She has visited me 3 times in all these years, and she has never visited my sister once. My mother's new home is also in I was in the county town. I knew where she lived, but I never went to disturb her. I walked downstairs of her house unconsciously. She recognized me from a distance. She was holding a little boy's hand and next to her was her current husband. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. I hurried into a noodle shop next door and ordered a bowl of tuon noodles. Before I started to eat, tears started to fall into the bowl. I kept telling myself in my heart that it was nothing and it didn't matter. But I just couldn't control myself because I saw my mother's embarrassment. She didn't want to see me. I despised myself even more. Why did I do such a thing? It was meaningless. I hadn't finished my bowl of noodles yet when she suddenly appeared in front of me and stuffed 500 yuan into my pocket. She said hesitantly, "I know you got into college. You know me. I don't have any special skills. I can only give you a hint. I have started to work during the summer vacation. In addition, over the years, I have consciously deducted money from my living expenses. Now I can pick it up. What happened back then? I didn't understand why a person could be so cruel. If you don't love children, why have them? You came here just to tell me this. Why are you afraid that I will stick to you in the future after you get into college? Don't worry, I won't even come to you to beg for food." He took out his previous momentum and scolded me. I looked at his slightly hideous face, but my heart was surprisingly calm. I was no longer afraid of him as before. "I hope you will keep your promise." I left after saying this. I got into college, which should have been a very happy thing, but it became more and more difficult for Qin Yu and I to communicate. I don't know why he began to hate school, and I didn't know how to tell him. I could only repeat that we had no other way except to go to school, but every time I said it, I could feel that he didn't listen. I began to become very irritable. I didn't know what to do. In my eyes, that was just to persevere. I didn't understand why it was so difficult for him to go to school. One winter, he saved his living expenses to buy me a sweater. I was very touched, but when the words came to my lips, I said, "If you have this idea, you might as well spend more time on studying." We began to become not as close as before. Every time I came back, he would tell me everything, but I don't know since when our relationship seemed to suddenly become different. He even avoided my eyes. When he was in the second grade of junior high school, he really couldn't study anymore. I asked for leave to go home and asked him what he wanted to do and what he would do after he stopped studying. He lowered his head at first and said nothing. I yelled at him, "Speak up, aren't you so capable? Aren't you so opinionated?" I went to hold his arm, and he pushed me away as if in a stress reaction, saying, "What's it to you? Why do you care about me? Did you give birth to me? Can you take care of yourself?" His words were like a string of rapid fire which made me lose control for the first time. Subconsciously I slapped him. His eyes looked at me. He was so young and should look youthful and lively, but his eyes were actually numb. He smiled at me and said, "Sister, do you want to keep hitting me? I've embarrassed you." After I hit him, he didn't cry, but I started crying. My hands were shaking after I hit him. I actually hit him. How could I hit him? Qin Yu didn't say anything and continued to stand there with his neck stiff. I sat on the chair, crying uncontrollably. I don't know when he handed me a tissue, but I didn't take it and covered my face with my hands. I don't know how it turned out like this. We continued to be in a Cold War and didn't talk until the next day when I was going to school, but Qin Yu got up early in the morning and packed my luggage. I wanted to talk to him again, but he just avoided me. He refused to communicate with me. In the end, Qin Yu chose to go to a technical secondary school. I went to college and we met less and less. When I went to college, I started to face the problem of tuition fees, 6,000 per semester. Tuition fees were not a small amount for my dad, who worked as a laborer on a construction site. My aunts and the others started to say all kinds of things, saying, "What's the point of studying? How long has so-and-so been working? And how much money does he make in a month? And how long has my dad supported me? Are they trying to force my dad to death?" Then they started talking about my sister, saying that she couldn't even complete the 9-year compulsory education, and now she is going to a technical secondary school. How much money will it cost my dad every year? And they learned the same thing from me. They only know how to exploit my dad, as if I had expected it. I was not surprised by their statements, but fortunately I had made plans long ago. For the living expenses of the entire 3 years of high school plus what I earned myself, excluding expenses, I saved about 20,000. As long as I work hard, I can finish college without relying on my dad, but I won't tell any of them. I want to see their reactions. My dad was smoking silently beside me, and after my aunt and the others had vented their emotions, he said, "The exam has started. You still have to study. If you hadn't met an old man like me, how could such a good thing happen? You would have missed it long ago." I looked at my dad. He seemed to have aged a lot, with a lot of white hair on his head, but I suddenly wanted to grab something. I felt my dad's powerlessness. Although he felt proud that I got into college at the same time, he regarded this as a great burden. I suddenly felt endless loneliness and unloved. I saw other classmates' parents thinking about them wholeheartedly, that kind of selfless attention, that kind of pity, envy and jealousy. These emotions tortured me over and over again, and Lu Chen's appearance made me eager to prove that I was loved and that someone loved me. That day, he took out the money he had saved from working from his tattered bag under the scorching sun and gave it to me, and said worriedly, "Qin Ran, you can't give up, you must read on." In his heart he thinks I will give up. He is afraid that I can't hold on. He doesn't understand me well enough. For me, as long as there is a slightest chance, I will grab it. How can I give up? It is impossible for me to give up. I don't know how to describe him. He obviously has a bad life and is obviously in the mud, but he still has extra kindness to me. He is such a fool. How can there be such a stupid person? But such a person actually makes me subconsciously want to get close to him. As long as I stand there, I feel that the sky will not fall. In his second year of high school, his mother fell ill and he dropped out of school. I am an extremely selfish person, selfish to the extreme, but at that moment I had the idea of helping someone for the first time. He and I are both in the mud. and watching him sink deeper and deeper does not make me feel happy, but only makes me panic. Our family does not have the ability to resist risks. Even if we want to go the path of studying, we can't do it. On thin ice, it was the first time I told the truth to someone. Lu-chan, how about I lend you some money first? I still have more than 10,000 yuan, so I can lend you 5,000 yuan, and then you can go find other people to borrow some more and hold on for a few more years, okay? You actually made so much from those things, so you have to keep it well? He was only shocked for a moment, and then he coaxed me like he was coaxing a child. I was irritated by his attitude, and then I said it was up to you, but when he really went to go through the withdrawal procedures, I couldn't help it and finally stopped him and said, "Can you please not be so childish?" He didn't say anything but just smiled weakly at me. I seemed to see myself through him, feeling sad and powerless, and anger filled my chest for a while. Later he worked part-time outside, but he would still come back to school several times a semester, bringing me a lot of food every time and recharging my meal card. We used to be desk mates and I rejected his kindness at first, but he just smiled and said, "Why don't you just consider it as a loan from you, and you can pay it back later?" I asked him more than once why he did that, until one night when it was very late after evening self-study, he came to see me and said that he would soon go out of the province to work, and gave me 2,000 yuan in cash. I asked the question again and he finally gave me the answer. He said, "I just wanted to see how far you can go." He smiled bitterly when he said this and I felt sad when I heard it. It was the first time I took his money, and I had a feeling that if I didn't use this to hold on to him, we would eventually drift apart, and this applies to many relationships. I also had friends who were okay with me, but I just accepted it calmly at that time. But I didn't want to do that with him. I also wanted to see a different path, how he would do, and whether someone who had fallen into the quagmire could still climb out. Lu Chen's grades were actually better than mine. The courses that I couldn't keep up with at the beginning were all made up by him. I could feel his helplessness and his unwillingness. As a hardworking person in the class, the key to the classroom has been in my hand. I hold the key to open the door every morning. He always appears not far away at the right time. On winter mornings when it is dark, I muster up the courage to get up early to open the classroom door. He is not far away from me and has become my board. I really don't have good talent. The head teacher uses me as an example to encourage other students, saying that if you study hard, you can get in no matter how hard you study, unlike Qin Ran who said he would study hard to get into a second-tier university. Everyone is used to it, but he is the only one who stands up to speak for me. He said, "Is it right for a teacher to say such a thing? It's so embarrassing." The head teacher said angrily that a dragon gives birth to a dragon, a phoenix gives birth to a phoenix, and a mouse gives birth to a son who can dig holes. I can't hear any extra words. I saw Lu Chen's hands were clenched tightly. I didn't know what I could do. I could only stand up and accompany him to show my attitude when the teacher punished him to stand. I wrote a sentence to him in a draft book. What he said is not important. What kind of people we will become is up to us to decide. The journey was the greatest kindness I received at that time. I was not well dressed and had only 2 coats to change in winter. When I used them, I wetted them with a towel, wrung out most of the water, wiped the clothes, then rubbed them with soap, then brushed them dry with a brush and finally wiped them with a towel. However, I still had to wash them after so many times. Sometimes one coat was very dirty and the other was not dry yet. The girl's self-esteem made me wear the still wet clothes to go to the classroom on a winter morning. The clothes were still steaming. Suddenly everyone's eyes were on me. Gu-chan gave me his coat and took my clothes to the boiler room to dry them for me. He also wrote a sentence to me, "Qin Ran, it's okay, there will be a lot of clothes in the future." We often memorized words together, 20 words every morning, and recited to each other. I was not good at math, so he analyzed each question for me. He was not good at politics, so I explained it to him over and over again. We had only one goal at that time, which was to get into college. At that time we were really holding on with all our might, but he got off the car halfway. He couldn't help me at that time and I couldn't help him either. I looked at my dad and suddenly said that someone would pay for my tuition, and as long as I agreed, I would marry that person after graduation. As expected, he was shocked at first, but after learning about Lu Chen's family, my dad finally sighed and agreed. I understood his tiredness and irritability. He had not thought it through about having children, and gave birth to them in a daze. He was forced by social morality to support us sisters, but when he really agreed, I actually felt sad. All the efforts I received were conditional. Suddenly, Lu Chen became an exception. Lu Chen never asked me to marry him. After knowing that I was admitted to the university, he came back to find me as soon as possible. He was fully prepared and even prepared a promissory note for me. He joked, "I know your personality. I'm just investing in advance." He said a lot of nonsense and my ears were filled with sadness. His ears were all red, I couldn't help it, I touched his ears and his face also turned red. I said, "Frankly, why your ears are red? How can you touch me?" She was like a virgin, extremely embarrassed. "Can't I touch you?" I continued, "You are so old now, you should pay attention to the impact." She said seriously. I took her card, signed my name on the U and said, "Lu Chan, can you send me off on the first day of school?" I know my dad won't send me off, I didn't care at first, but now Lu Chan is. Back, he really didn't refuse me. When school was about to start, he prepared everything for me. I went to a university in the same province. He bought me sheets, quilts, power strips and sunscreen for military training online in advance. It can be said that many parents are not as careful as him. When he helped me deliver the things to the dormitory building, my roommate asked me who he was. Lu Chen was about to explain. I reached out and held his hand and said he was my boyfriend. Lu Chen's eyes were as big as a cow. This time even his neck, his face turned red. And I saw many beads of sweat on his forehead. I couldn't help but wipe them off. He was completely stiff. When we were having lunch together at noon, he said seriously, I'm helping you, but I really didn't mean that. Then you look down on me. I deliberately misinterpreted his meaning and said, no, you can have a better choice. He lowered his head and finally said, what is the better choice? He didn't reply to me and ate the rice sullenly. On the way, he sent me a text message. Chinran, you have to understand, you are in college now, you can meet many other outstanding people, you have finally climbed out of the quagmire, don't climb back in. I read the text message and only replied, I like you, it has nothing to do with anything. Then we didn't meet again for a long time, and only liked the circle of friends. I didn't move. I saved all the money Luchun gave me. I made up my mind. If we are together, this will be our living fund. If we are not destined to be together, the money will be returned to him with interest. After entering university, I did everything I could to earn money from scholarships, and took on various part-time jobs. I opened a small shop in the dormitory and set up a stall at the night market at night. I was so busy that I became a spinning top. When I said goodbye to Luchan, I was hurriedly packing my things to get rid of the urban management. He got out of his small van, said nothing, helped me move my things to the car, and then drove me away. I sat in the passenger seat. Neither of us spoke until later, when he finally couldn't hold back and asked, what's wrong? Is it because you don't have enough money? Luchan, you really don't like me, right? I couldn't help but ask this question. I have never been in a relationship, and I have thought of many possibilities. Chasing her? With our personalities, we will be together if we like each other. There is only one possibility, that he really pities me. It's strange to say that I, who have no self-esteem for a long time, have become more and more pretentious in recent years. The whole road is filled with car taillights. He drove the car into a school parking lot. He did not answer my question but opened the window, lit a cigarette and said halfway through the cigarette, does it matter whether you like it or not? I can solve the current problem by myself. I leaned back in the seat and finally uttered this sentence, but your solution will make you very hard. He put out the cigarette, stared at me and said, my hardship should have nothing to do with you, we are just high school classmates. I replied without showing any weakness, fuck Chinran, don't regret it. He hugged me tightly and I even felt him trembling, his head leaning against my, breathing in and out close to my neck. I felt my scalp tingling, and my nose was filled with his smell, exactly the same as when he sat next to me before. How should I put it? It was like the smell of freshly washed clothes exposed to the sun, mixed with his own smell. Just a hug made my heart beat violently. I reached out and touched his head. His short hair was a little prickly. He reached out and pressed down my rebellious hand, raised his hand and pressed me down on the seat. There was an undercurrent in his eyes and he just looked at me. We looked into each other's eyes, and we could hear each other's breathing. He took a deep breath. He said to me, Chinran, it's not too late for you to regret now. He said this particularly heavily, almost like a parting of life and death. In that instant, subconsciously I kissed him. I always thought his lips were beautiful, but I never had the chance to touch them. In such an atmosphere I did it. He was a little shocked and stunned for a moment. Chinran, you asked for it. As soon as he finished speaking, I was about to pull away, but he grabbed me into his arms and deepened the kiss. This kiss was very aggressive, it didn't even feel like a kiss. He bit my lip, which reminded me of the puppy I raised in the countryside bit my finger like this when I brought it home for the first time. He trembled while biting it, and I was finally sure that he liked me. I was not being sentimental. My heart beat faster, and I could even ignore the smell of his cigarette. I even shed tears at the end of the kiss. After the kiss, he wiped away my tears and held me in his arms again. Chinran, don't play with me. I touched the stubble on his chin and provocatively said, kiss me next time and don't smoke. I don't like it. When I returned to the dormitory at night, I felt my feet were light and floating. I touched it unconsciously. My chest was burning hot. I wanted desperately to share this joy with others. After thinking about it, I called Chinyu. He was silent for a long time on the phone and said, my academic performance is not good. I don't want to study anymore. Can you return the money to that man? It's not because of the money. Don't think too much. Just keep reading. You have to read even if you can't concentrate. I said this in a hurry. His words made the so-called joy in my heart disappear. Why is it worth it? I said I don't like studying. What the hell are you doing to sacrifice yourself? You work so hard, but is it to be with such a person? Chinyu's words became more and more serious. It's not what you think. I have money and he is a very good person. I like him very much. I patiently explained to him, but Chinyu hung up the phone directly. We parted unhappily again. The next time we contacted was when the Chinese New Year was approaching. He suddenly sent me a message saying, sister, can I lend you 50 yuan for the bus fare? I was stunned. When did we become so polite? I transferred 300 yuan to him and asked him to tell me if he had no money. At the same time, I called my dad and asked him how he gave Chinyu living expenses. He was very angry and said, I support you. It's not easy for the two of us. How could he grow up without living expenses? I asked him when I gave him living expenses last month, but he suddenly hesitated and then got angry and asked how I could remember it so clearly. I didn't even have the energy to argue with him. I took a deep breath and I seemed to see myself in those years through Chinyu. At night, I dreamed that I went to eat other people's leftovers, and when I woke up, my pillow was wet. After the exam, I bought a ticket home and Chinyu and I met again at home. He asked me to find him a job during the winter vacation. He avoided my dad's eyes when he spoke and said very actively, yes, Chinran. Aren't you going to work during the winter vacation this year? Take your sister with you. As soon as she opened her mouth, I got so angry. How poor are they? How old is Chinyu? Do you know that child labor is illegal? I asked him one question after another. It was meaningless. He didn't listen at all. He just kept telling me that he was only 12 years old when he worked, and how much debt my grandmother owed him. At that time he couldn't even straighten his back because of carrying stones. He also said that he has been alone for so many years. Isn't it for us sisters? This is so against his will. He has never stopped going on blind dates over the years, except for being deceived. Money, none of it was done. I really didn't have the energy to argue with him, so I pulled Chinyu out. Chinyu even avoided me when I got close to him. I asked him what was wrong, and suddenly found the scratches on his wrist. He quickly retracted his hand. I quickly grabbed him and lifted his sleeves. There were scratches all over his hand, some of which were very, very deep. How cruel must he have been to have such big scars? Whoever drew them bullied you. As soon as I said this, my tears rolled down. Chinyu quickly put down his sleeves. He turned around and didn't look at me, but I saw that he was trying his best not to cry. I wanted to pull him, but he looked up. He looked at me, his eyes full of tears, and said, "I told you it's no one's fault, I just did it accidentally." I reached out to wipe his tears, and as soon as my hand touched his, all the tears came out, and I couldn't help it and cried with him. "Doesn't it hurt?" I touched his hand again and again. "You don't owe me anything, can you just leave it alone?" He finally said this while choking with tears, and I felt that he was struggling all over. "I care about you a lot, please don't make trouble with your sister, okay?" I pulled her in my arms and said again, "I told you I'm here, you can trust me." She burst into tears in my arms. "It's not you. You gave birth to me, why do you care so much? Please don't marry that guy for money, okay?" I patted his back and explained to him again and again that I can be self-sufficient now, I just like Luchan. Luchan is very important to me. He looked at me in disbelief. I told him that you still have a long life, you will meet someone who is truly good to you, and you will understand how I feel now. That night we lay in the same bed again. I listened to him talking about his junior college life, how he liked painting, and how there was an art teacher who always praised him and he even won an award. I know this, he even told me about the award. It's just that I was busy with my part-time job at the time, so I just congratulated him over the phone. Then for some reason the art teacher suddenly disliked him and said, "I didn't expect you to be this kind of person." I asked him if the teacher was that important. He was stunned and said, "No one has ever praised me before, saying that I'm not good at studying and I'm not like you." Then I realized that I seem to have missed a lot of his life. During this time I have been with him. He painted and I watched him by the side. While watching I said, "I think I will never be able to learn to paint well in my life. Fortunately, I have a sister." I wanted to encourage him, but he suddenly couldn't hold back his tears. The words fell down with a click. "Sister, I am not good at studying. Am I embarrassing you?" Then I realized what I had done. I asked myself honestly, I actually don't like studying, but it can help me. I just kept clinging to studying. However, whether one can study well or not is not determined by hard work. I began to try to understand Chinyu when I was not around. When I was shopping with her, a boy in her class shouted at her, "Fatty Chin, you have lost some weight, don't you look like a fat pig?" Chinyu lowered her head in shame. When did Chinyu become like this? It was like that. I looked at the boy's excited look, rushed over and slapped him. He was stunned on the spot. Before he could react, I beat him up severely. People on the street gathered around us, and the people next to us pulled us apart. I pointed at the boy and shouted to Chinyu, "Chinyu, remember this, whether you are fat or thin is none of their business. If anyone bullies you, you bully him back. I will hold up the sky if it falls." Chinyu looked at me with her eyes open, tears welling up in her eyes. In the summer, I rented a single room where I worked, and took Chinyu to live with me during her summer vacation. After get off work, I took her for a walk. She was wearing a short-sleeved shirt, and all the scars were exposed. I felt like my heart was being torn apart. I pinched some of his scars with my hands. He looked at me, was silent at first, and then said, "I'm sorry, sister, I didn't mean it." As he spoke, he began to cry, and I just couldn't control myself. I just couldn't control myself. I just couldn't control myself. I said, I'm sorry." He said that no one had ever affirmed him, and that he seemed really unlikable. The teacher in junior high school often said about him, "You might as well not go to school." Dad hates him too. Every time I see him, it's like I'm seeing something dirty. Mom, I had never seen him before. He asked me if he was really annoying. I held his hand tightly, just like he held mine when he was a child, and said, "I like you very much, I care about you very much. You are the closest person to me in this world." Do you know that when he fell asleep at night, I secretly looked at the wounds on my phone. For the first time in my life, I felt an extreme fear. I was afraid of losing him. Even after returning to school, I kept contacting him, buying him clothes, pants, shoes, and sending him various photos. I kept hinting to him that the world is big and there are many other things. One night I had a nightmare. I dreamed that Chinyu was gone. I woke up in a cold sweat. I called him early the next morning, but I didn't know what to say to him. Finally, I held back my tears and said to Chinyu, "We have to have a few good days together." I started to plan his life. He liked painting, so I found all the painting friends I could contact, especially those who had achieved some success, and let him get in touch with them. Chinyu originally planned to stop studying after finishing junior college. He told me that junior college would cost 8,000 yuan a year in tuition, and there were living expenses. I also started an internship, with an internship salary of several thousand yuan a month. I thought about it and decided to let him take out a student loan first, and then I would pay it off in one lump sum. However, my father would be responsible for his living expenses. My father finally agreed to this decision. I made an appointment with Luchan to take out the bank card. His face suddenly changed and his hands were clenched tightly. Was it necessary for Qin Ran to calculate so clearly? I looked at his appearance and tears welled up in my eyes for some reason. Big drops fell. I thought I was very calm, but facing him, I had to state the matter in a discontinuous manner. It might not be a good thing for Luchan to marry me. He reached out to wipe away my tears, then kissed my eyes and said, "Marrying me is even less of a good thing. I haven't even got a high school diploma. Are you sure you still want to get married?" We hugged each other tightly. When we were young, we were always full of blood and passion. After being beaten by society and life, we realized how limited personal efforts are. My father was even stingy with the living expenses for my sister. Until my Aunt Cindy got depression, he was very worried and asked me to help find a hospital. I asked him if he knew what depression was. He said that depression means suicide. I asked him if Cindy had done anything. He said my aunt said so. I said, "Do you know that you have a daughter who has been self-harming? You may not even know when she dies." He thought it was... I said panically, I said, "Qinyu, if you can't continue studying, will you just stop studying? Why are you under so much pressure? What should I do if something happens to you?" He really doesn't care. Qinyu doesn't care at all, and then I heard him say to Qin Ran, "Don't be upset, if something happens to you, it's not worth leaving the money to someone like me." I hung up the phone. He kept calling me, I didn't answer. He sent me a WeChat message, "Qin Ran, you know, I haven't read much, I'm not thoughtful, you have to understand, Dad, what would Dad do without you?" A huge sadness surrounded me. I called my dad, choked up and said only one sentence, "Dad, why couldn't you be nicer to us at the beginning? Just a little bit better would be enough." I couldn't listen to his response to me, quickly hung up the phone, squatting on the ground and crying wildly. This was the first time in all these years that I couldn't control myself at all in order to gain a foothold in this society. I dare not stop, dare not get sick, dare not slack off. I was about to suffocate in this endless anxiety and panic until Qinyu was one step ahead of me and was about to fall. I vaguely realized that our hearts were seriously ill. I began to realize that I was not just pulling him, I was pulling myself. Qinyu was equivalent to my own life. He must not get into trouble. I have been living with Lu Chan. He came back at night driving Didi, found out that I was different, and kept asking me the reason. I just suddenly hugged him and said, "Hey, does it all require conditions?" He rubbed my head, just told me that he would always be by my side. I started saving money to take Qinyu out to play. I told him, "Qinyu, we will live a good life every day in the future." Qinyu didn't say anything, but her spirits were much better. I even found that she started to paint for others part-time. She spent all the first money she earned, bought me a gift with a sticky note inside. "Sister, I will make a lot of money for you." Lu Chan went back to his hometown to do fruit wholesale, and brought some agricultural supplies, such as fertilizers and pesticides. I thought about it and chose to return to the county. In our middle school, as a junior high school teacher, I met a girl who looked very similar to Qinyu. She asked me if the teacher only had to study. I said that it was not only studying, but this road could go further. Before we do what we like, we must do a lot of things we don't like. After returning to my hometown, I found that it seemed that he hadn't changed for so many years. When we went to purchase oranges, there would always be farmers who were afraid that we would not come. Maybe a family with hundreds of orange trees is the future of this family. In order to expand sales, we even started live broadcasting and began to help farmers. At the beginning, we couldn't do it at all until Qinyu took a video of me picking oranges, which became popular and received high praise comments. Peaceful and gentle, maybe this is how the photographer sees you. We started our life of being teachers at work and internet celebrities after get off work. Most of the oranges in the nearby towns were sold by me and other anchors who sell goods. These anchors who sell goods were all children who grew up with me. Everyone came back subconsciously. I returned to the village. I didn't say anything. When those people who talked about us saw me, they kept praising Qinyu and I for being good and promising. They are afraid that I will bear a grudge now. I wanted to say something, but when I saw children who looked similar to us one by one, I finally just said that we only want good oranges, and it's okay if it's okay or not if it's not. Our hometown is really too poor. I have graduated for so long, and there are still people dropping out of school. I have wanted to escape from him countless times, but when I saw children like Qinyu and me again, I couldn't hold it back at all. I am so ordinary. Just like an ant, others look up and lift their feet, which is all people like us have. However, there are many ants like me in this world. Most of them are in my remote and poor hometown. If an ant goes out and does not come back, then the group of ants do not know that there is a vast world outside, and they do not know that there is abundant food in the bigger world. I chose to be the ant that turned back. Later, I met my junior high school teacher again. He cried and said to me, I said, "It would be great if I had a child like you." This time I did not cry, but smiled at him. When my children were born, Qinyu learned painting all the way, and he became a very famous original painter in the industry. At the beginning, I kept running to the city, but he was the one who stayed in the city. When Qinyu was 30 years old, he bought a house with both of our names on it. He said, "Sister," I said, "I will earn a big house for you."